Hello, Timothy LeGendre here, CPA in Florida. Made a couple videos here in this playlist for bookkeeping and bookkeeping services. Rambled on and on about QuickBooks. I wanted to take a second to make a video to throw in here about what I charge, why I charge it, and then I'll go into that, in deeper depth in other videos. But when you get a $200-300 bookkeeper, and then I've even higher. I've seen people doing QuickBooks that charge $600-700 a month or more to just handle your QuickBooks, and even sometimes even crazier than that. But and I'm going to do another video on the difference between like bookkeeping and accounting because there are differences there. But most of the times you are just getting a bookkeeper that is just going to categorize some transactions. Sometimes I have seen them not even do reconciliations, and a lot of times they don't know any of the type of like full accounting cycle or different parts of accounting. Like real true double entry, knowing why certain things are certain ways, and the opposite entries for a lot of different, double entry accounting. For instance, I've got someone right now, I'm taking over his books, and he's paying a guy to do his QuickBooks as a bookkeeper, like $300 a week, actually. And I went into the balance sheet, was missing assets, had a negative, $11,000 credit card, had equity section was years old, didn't properly account for things that had been done for a while, had messy equity section, had things that didn't belong there. The liabilities wasn't fully correct, and then the assets, there were assets in there that weren't also correct either. They were maybe just like kind of holding suspense accounts, which is fine, but didn't really reflect the current state of the assets. So if you're out there and you're like, well, I've got to the past, the point where I can't do it myself, and I would say just don't even do it yourself in the beginning. And you're looking at getting someone to do the books, this is where like you could lose the most money because you think that you're going to hire someone to do them for you, and therefore it's done, and you don't have to worry about it anymore. And like you just want to try to get the best deal, and it's just prices for a tire. If I could just get the cheapest tire, I'll be good to go. But there's real differences out there, and some differences are that cheapest option could cost you a lot of money come tax time for cleaning up your books, missed deductions, things that the person just doesn't even know. And then a lot of times, when someone gets it with another 1,000 tax returns on their desk, they're not going to sit there and look through your books for mistakes or really know your business in and out. So if you get someone like me, a CPA that's in your books, that knows accounting, that knows tax strategy, then you're never going to miss those type of things. I'm not saying I don't make mistakes, but I have a lot of tools to back me up and reclassify things if I get it wrong. I put things in suspense so that I can have a nice clean list of different things that I want to go over with an owner on are there personal expenses here? Are some of them reimbursements? For instance, I had one now that I set it aside and I asked them, and it was like, yeah, it looks like it's going to me personally, but actually what I do is I use that money to pay on a truck loan that I had to get in my personal name because my business didn't have credit yet. And that's a very common thing, right? If you're out there and you're an operator and owner operator, and you have to get a truck, and a lot of these trade businesses or even regular businesses as well, or an asset, a lot of times without a Dun and Bradstreet's number and going into, how to get your own kind of credit as a business, you have to do some kind of personal guarantee or personal loan. The big banks aren't going to just lend to your business with no history and stuff like that. So you have to get a personal loan, and there's nothing wrong with that. But, if you have the wrong type of bookkeeper and they saw someone, just giving money to yourself in your own name, like sending yourself a Zelly or transferring to your own personal account, they might not properly account for that. And then without it being set aside to double review or check, or, just given to some guy that has 1,000 tax returns on his desk, that's going to go missed. And then, what about my truck? And what about depreciation? What about interest? What about all the costs associated with it? I was transferring that money over to my account to pay that bill. And there you go. There's possible thousands of dollars that you missed, but hey, you saved extra $100 a month or so on buying some QuickBooks Expert or whatever. So how did I come up with my price? It really just kind of comes down to time, complexity, and expertise. 20,000 hours of expertise doing financial statements means I know, like, I could look at a financial statement and I could know if there's something like out of whack right off the bat. Usually I can spot things very quickly. I just know when things don't look right, and then I know what things to drill down on. I know what to look at something and say, hey, what's in this, or why do you have this? And then come to find out, it's something that needs to be dealt with. So another reason for me is, come tax time, you're not trying to find someone else to look over someone else's books and not understand them, or hand something off to somebody that really doesn't really do financials, because a lot of CPAs out there don't want to touch bookkeeping. They ship it out overseas. They do outsourcing. They do these, kind of cheap contractors, and they just don't have a lot of touch with the financials. Somehow they just get pigeonholed in the tax, and that's fine if that's what they want to do. But I'm more well-rounded than that. I don't like to just be pigeonholed into one thing. So that's a big plus, because you got someone that knows the financials and then knows the tax and then knows the numbers to be able to do like tax strategy and planning come August, September, October. So for me, the profit is really in there, around like $500. It's business to business. Like you're in a business to make profit, and so am I. There's no shame in that. But to go any lower than that, then I'm really kind of just spinning my wheels, and that it just kind of is being dishonest, right? It's not saying that I'm actually doing this for a profit. It's just saying that I'm help subsidizing your business, and it's just that I just have to price as best as I can, to make sure that everyone is happy and everyone gets value in what they're doing, and then at the end of the day, there's enough profit, because I can't live off of air. I have to live off of money. That's the world that we live in. So, but it's not astronomical, and it's not gouging. I'm not charging $2,000 a month and then over promising something that I can't deliver. I'm charging a very fair, very valuable price to do something that has a lot of things built into it that does give you that value. So if you really do the math, and I have different comparisons on my websites, and there's different calculators out there, and we could talk about it. Like, I've replaced a lot of bookkeepers that were charging $675 at $500, and then you're not only saving on that, but then you're saving on QuickBooks, because you don't have to use QuickBooks software or other software, and then you're also saving come tax time, because I'm asking you about deductions and stuff throughout the year. So that's just one reason why I charge what I charge, because there's a lot baked into this. It's not just a simple cake. It's a very elaborate cake that I offer, and so that's what how I came up with my pricing. It does go up based on complexity and the amount of accounts you have. If you show up to me with 20 different accounts and credit lines and credit cards, and you move assets in and out of your business, just constantly, then obviously it's going to be more than $500. If you came to me though, and you're like, Tim, I'm pre-revenue and I'm just starting, and like I can't afford $500. I'm barely making a couple grand of revenue, or I'm a contractor and I'm just starting on my business, and I'm an insurance agent, I'm a real estate agent. I work with you, and I work on the size of your business, so I have been able to go down in price at times. I can't say that I can do that for everyone, or say that that's going to be the case for you. But if you were like, man, I really want this, and I really need this type of value, I want a CPA doing it from the beginning, then I can work with you. I'm not that strictler on a lot of things, but I would say that there is benefit to that, because I have worked for some people pre-revenue, and then as they build, and then at a certain price, with the expectation that it will go up to a regular price when you reach certain revenue targets. But then we're in there together. I have some kind of stake in the game on you doing well, because then eventually I'll get up to my minimum pricing and stuff like that. But it also just kind of, if you start with the right person, then and you build that relationship, and you work with me for several years, then like things get a lot easier, and then that foundation gets laid, and then you can do all the things on top of it. So some of my clients I've been working with for a while, getting them up to speed, and getting their books right, and getting their tax basic situation and basic tax structure right, that takes time sometimes. It just takes at least one or two tax returns. It takes time to go through a lot of that. So, after a year or so of getting things kind of right and in the right direction, then you can start doing things like, children on the payroll, looking at different depreciation options like cost segregation for Airbnb rentals, and looking at 401ks, and looking at HSAs, and then, going into different tax strategies. And so, it all starts with, doing things right, and doing things right from the beginning. It takes a while to get it right, but that's why I charge what I charge, because it creates buy-in. It creates, wanting to stick around and do things right because you are paying a fair price for it. So there's a quick video. Hopefully, maybe I ended up too long, but again, send me an email, tim@timcpa.com. Visit my website, timcpa.com. I also have a pricing calculator on there. You can fill it out, get your quote based on your situation. I don't do any newsletters or programs or mass spamming or some marketing campaign or whatever crap. I do reach out. I do follow up to see how you're doing, see if we're a good fit to work together. But other than that, it's just a free calculator. Visit it here at this link here. And yeah, I appreciate your time. Thank you.